This is John Kohler with DiscountJuicers.com. Today we have a very special treat for you. This is one of the most asked for comparisons I get all the time. Hey John, what is better, the Omega VERT 350 HD or the same as the 330? Basically the 350 is the upgraded version of the 330. Has a new heavy-duty juicing screen. And for you guys out there that are watching this video that are serious about juicing and are going to juice every day, only go with the Omega VERT 350 HD. It's the heavy-duty version, has a stronger screen, and one of the problems with the VERT 330 was the screen was cracking. So this should basically minimize and drastically reduce the amount of cracking the screen because it is 8 times stronger now. That being said, over here we have one of my other favorite juicers in the world. This is the Omega 8006 Nutrition Center. And for those that are into living in raw foods and want to make a whole lifestyle change, this is probably the machine I'd recommend for you, because besides just juicing, this one will allow you to make, frozen fruit sorbets, nut butters, baby foods, grind up your foods, homogenize. You can actually take just cabbage, take whole cabbage, put it through there with a blank plate, it'll homogenize it, cut it up, and then you just basically ferment that cabbage into your own fresh sauerkraut, and that's exactly what they do at the Ann Wigmore Institute in Puerto Rico. They just use actually the Omega to grind up their cabbage, and they make the sauerkraut fresh out of that. It's so delicious. Anyways, let's get back to the juice off today. So we're going to juice the Omega VERT 350 HD and the Omega 8006 Nutrition Center against each other. So that being said, the Omega 8006 is identical to the Omega 8004, which I have right here behind me. So it's identical to the 8004. The only difference is the color. Both these machines have the 15-year warranty. This one's less money just because the color is different. If you need that chrome plating and the black color, then it's going to cost you more money. But 15 years on the warranty on this machine. The Omega VERT 350 has the 10-year warranty. The Omega VERT, once again, 330 and the 350 HD are basically the same exact machine. The only difference is the color and the screen material, but on these machines, they are identical. So before we get started juicing, let me go ahead and tell you about some of the differences between these machines. This machine, basically, they're both single auger juicers. They both run at a slow 80 RPM, so that's gonna preserve the nutrition and give you the highest nutrient quality in the juice. And they both do a great job. Overall, depending on what you're wanting to juice, the Omega VERT juicer may get a little bit higher yield on, most things. If you don't know what you want to juice, if you want to juice like everything under the sun, then probably the Omega VERT juicer is going to tend to do a little bit better on especially things like the fruits than the Omega 8006. If you're one of those people that, know you want to juice and you want to juice a lot of leafy greens and wheatgrass, well, this will juice all those, but you know what? The Omega 8006 is basically going to be more efficient with juicing the leafy greens. So overall, for my juicing style, I prefer the Omega 8006. I tend to juice a lot of leafy greens with some celery and cucumbers, although I also do use the VERT too when I'm juicing, carrots and other things too. So, big decisions. This machine is less money as well. This machine takes up less counter space. So if counter space is important, this takes up less counter space. The other main thing to realize is that the Omega VERT juicer tends to make a pulpier juice than the Omega 8006. So if you don't like pulpy juice, then go with the 8006, or you're going to have to get the Omega VERT and then strain your juice to get some of that pulp out. If you like pulpy juice, well, hey, then this is your machine right here. Real simple. So, pros and cons. Each juicer has their pros and cons. Let's go ahead and juice just about similar produce amounts in each juicer and see what we get to just kind of compare the yield. Now, I haven't exactly weighed out things. This is kind of a rough ballpark. You'll get to see how it works and kind of get to see, about the yield and see the consistency. So that's the test today. Let's go ahead and first start with the Omega VERT juicer. Turn this on. I do like the Omega VERT juicer. It's actually quicker to juice. You can literally take, carrots and just pop it in there, and it's pretty much self-feeding. So if you have arthritis or whatever and you don't like pushing things in, the Omega VERT would probably be a better machine because it's literally self-feeding. Here's a, quarter of a cucumber going right in the machine. Pretty much self-feeding. Basically chunks off a little piece and then it just goes in by itself. So my basic juice is basically 75% of the glass of just some nice water-rich vegetables. By that meaning either romaine lettuce, and these are romaine hearts, or you can use cucumbers or carrots. Also put a little bit of apple in there, or celery. Actually, we got some celery, so let's juice some of that up next. Oh, and it's important in the Omega VERT juicer when you're juicing celery, you want to break it into little pieces and then actually drop it in the machine for best results. If you put long pieces in, the string tends to get stuck in the ejection port. And that's one of the other benefits of the Omega VERT and why it is actually more, generally makes more yield, because there's basically an ejection port that has a flap. And the flap actually keeps the produce in the machine so the machine could actually wring out that produce and get it drier before it is ejected. Whereas on the Omega 8006, they don't have the same kind of flap. They do have some mechanism that keeps the pulp in there, but it doesn't quite keep it in there as long, so the pulp overall will be a little bit wetter. So once again, we're going to just chop up the celery and put that in the machine. Next, let's go ahead and put in some turnip greens. So on turnip greens or things like kale and chard, you know, with long stems, you're going to want to once again chop up the stems into little pieces. Just tear it off and dump it in the machine. So once again, the strings in the stems actually don't get wrapped around the auger and clog it up. It's real simple and real easy. Shove that in there. It's also really good on either juicer to rotate the produce you're juicing. So you see we've kind of put one piece of each thing in, and now we're kind of starting over. We're going to do the carrot and now the cucumber. And what this allows is basically it allows the machine to have a mixture of different fibers. Like carrot fibers are really hard and fibrous, and they actually tend to get pushed out of the juicer much more effectively than softer fibers of, you know, like romaine lettuce, for example. So that's the romaine lettuce. Let's put some more romaine lettuce in here. As you can see, the pulp coming out is pretty dry. Next, another stalk of celery here. We'll put a small piece in. Get some more of these turnip greens. And you know, there's all kinds of different greens you can juice, and I encourage everybody to juice a wide variety of greens. You know, if you make a juice with spinach every day, you know, well, hey, one day maybe you should make spinach juice, the next day make some kale juice, then make some kohlrabi leaf juice. Have you had that one? Make a parsley juice, you know, with the parsley as, you know, your 25% greens. Dandelions. We want to eat a wide variety of foods in our diets, you know, and don't get stuck on making the same juice day in and day out. Change it up just a little bit, you know, change up just one ingredient. Like, make the base always the same, maybe some cucumbers and celery and carrots, romaine hearts, or change that up too, but always get a different dark leafy green. You know, try that bok choy, juice some bok choy from the store. You know, try at your different farmers markets, you know, different kinds of greens. Try juicing lamb's quarters. I often juice lamb's quarters. They grow as a weed in my garden, but you know what? I use that weed to my benefit, and I juice it, and I get the nutrition out of those weeds. And some of the weeds actually are some of the best things to be eaten because they have a lot higher, you know, basically nutrient content than some of the standard leafy green vegetables that we normally get in the store. So we're just cutting up the last bits of these turnip greens. And the last couple pieces here, going through the Omega VERT 350 HD juicer. Once again, this is the heavy duty model, and for people that are serious about juicing, you should only pick the 350 HD model and not the 330. That's my personal recommendation. So that's pretty much finished there. We're going to turn that off. Next, we're going to juice in the Omega 8006 Nutrition Center. We're going to turn that on. The feed sheet's a little bit smaller. It's about 1.5 inches in diameter. So we're going to put a carrot in there. And you know, the carrot will sit there all day. With the Omega VERT, it was nice if we just put it in and it would basically self-feed. With this, we need to give it a little bit of pressure to you know, allow it to juice. The other thing that may be important to some people that I didn't mention actually yet is cleaning time. So you know what, you know, while it does take longer to juice in the Omega 8006 because it has a smaller feed chute, you got to baby it more, you got to use a pusher. The cleanup time is actually quicker in the Omega 8006. The Omega 8006 takes me under 2 minutes to clean, and the Omega VERT over here takes me about under 4 minutes to clean. So it's about double the time. But if you're juicing a you know, a large amount, you'll save that time in the VERT easily because it's actually going to juice at least 2 minutes quicker. It's already taken a little bit longer to juice already just with this, just what we're juicing today. One of the reasons why green juices are so good for us because they're really rich in chlorophyll. And chlorophyll is basically how plants turn the sun's energy into its own energy. And then when we eat the chlorophyll, we get the energy from the plants, or the plant's energy, the chlorophyll. It's basically rebuilding. Very, very good and very nutritious for us, rebuilding. If you've heard about wheatgrass, one of the reasons why it is so good is because of the high chlorophyll content. But what people don't realize is that most other dark green, or all other dark green and green leafy vegetables also contain chlorophyll. The darker the green, the more chlorophyll it has in it. One of the tricks that I like to show you guys when you're juicing leafy greens is if you take like a big leaf like this, you try to just shove it in like I do, it can be a little bit difficult. But what you want to do if you're smart is you want to take the green here and you want to just like roll it up. And just carefully roll it up just like that, and then you're just going to easily feed it in a little bit at a time, and it's going to go in much easier than having to work at it really hard. Much easier. So let's feed in some more of the turnip greens. And sometimes I like to use even like celery or carrot, the next piece of produce. Use that as your pusher. Makes it a little bit easier. More turnip greens into the juice there. Every juicer has its pluses and minuses. I wish there was a juicer that truly did it all and that was available for an affordable cost. I'd probably recommend that to everybody. But until that time, you want to pick the juicer that's going to work the best and juice the best about what you juice. For every person, they're going to select a different juicer, and every juicer works a little bit better. Which one of these juicers do I like the best? I don't know if I can answer that question, depending on what I'm doing. Like if I'm extracting like coconut milk, then this machine does horribly at it. This machine does wonderfully. So I have both juicers, and depending on the specific job I'm doing in the kitchen, or the specific juice I'm making, will determine what juicer I'm going to use. Let's see, so unfortunately for most people, they don't have the selection of juicers. I have all the different juicers in my kitchen, so I get to pick every day what juicer I want to use for each specific task, but you might only want to have one juicer in your kitchen. So you're going to want to make sure that the juicer you pick is going to do the majority of the tasks you want to do fairly well. All right, so here's the last piece of celery. Oh, and we have one more romaine leaf going into the Omega 8006. All right, so that's all the juice. Now let's go ahead and compare the results. Now this wasn't a specific yield test because I didn't weigh out and scrutinize the exact amounts of produce through each machine. I just kind of said, okay, well, this is about the same amount, one stalk of celery here, one stalk of turnip greens here, quarter of a cucumber on this side, quarter of a cucumber on that side. So that being said, don't take this as a legitimate yield test. It may not be entirely accurate in that sense, but at least this will give us some kind of sense of what juicer does yield more and the quality of the juice. So we can see this juice here, very little pulp in the juice. Looks like to be a very clean, fine juice, very little pulp. And let's go ahead and then take a look at this juice here. This juice looks to be fairly pulp-free too. This juice out of the Omega VERT has a little bit more foam than the juice out of the Omega 8006 Nutrition Center. If you want to take a look at both those juices, comparing both juicers, looks like the yield, and this is not a yield test, but just for fun, the Omega VERT had about 16.5 ounces, and the Omega 8006 had about approximately 18 ounces. So the Omega 8006 did have a little bit more, but I could have put extra, produce on the tray when I was juicing it. So we can't take that as a full yield test. But we can tell you that in general, the Omega VERT does make a pulpier juice. The Omega VERT is easier to feed the produce into. But if you're just wanting to make mostly green juices, I do recommend you get the Omega 8006 or 8004. Just in the long run, it's going to be a better machine. It also has a longer warranty. So that'll do it for the comparison of the Omega 8006 and the Omega VRT 350 HD model. Both are excellent juicers, and you know what? Pick the juicer that's going to be the best and the right fit for you. Once again, I'm John Kohler with DiscountJuicers.com. Be sure to visit DiscountJuicers.com/YouTube for special promotional offers for our YouTube visitors.